At 7:13 a.m., Archie Bennett dropped the steel barrier and raised his palm. The black sedan with CEO Farrah Lancaster's plate idled, tinted glass-swallowing faces. Protocol said, "Wave it through." His gut said, "Don't." The rear window eased an inch. Farrah leaned forward to scorch him until another face drifted into view. A pale woman with Farrah's eyes, a butterfly scar, and wrists shadowed like shackles. Her lips shaped a whisper. Zane 6'2". Farrah's composure shattered. She froze. Irene Lancaster was alive, after 2 vanished years. Rain beaded the Southgate camera lens as Archie Bennett stepped into the center lane. 7 o'clock traffic hummed behind him, headlights cutting through the gray morning. He'd worked this gate for 3 years, long enough to know the weight of every vehicle by the dip of its suspension, the rhythm of every engine by its idle. This black sedan wore CEO Farrah Lancaster's executive plate, but something felt wrong. The rear axle sat too low for 2 passengers. The panic button on the driver's console had a strip of gray tape across it, and when the RFID tag pinged through his system, the delay clocked at 0.8 seconds too slow. A clone card, maybe, or someone who didn't want to be tracked. Archie's finger hovered over the intercom. Henry Grant's voice crackled through the radio before he could speak. "Wave it through, Bennett. That's the CEO's car." Archie didn't move. He'd spent 6 years in the Army as an explosive ordnance disposal technician before a roadside blast sent him home with a limp and a daughter to raise alone. EOD taught him one ironclad rule: unusual indicators demand secondary checks. Protocol 9B existed for exactly this reason: unusual duress indicators. The tape, the weight, the lag. All 3 boxes checked. He tapped the bollard control, and a second steel barrier rose behind the sedan. Boxing it in, the driver's window descended. Zane Carter, a contracted chauffeur Archie recognized from weekly rotations, stared back with eyes too wide, too still. No irritation, no confusion, just fear dressed up as calm. Archie leaned in. "Step out, please." Secondary inspection. Zane's hand twitched toward the ignition. Archie's voice dropped. "Don't." The rear window slid down an inch. Farrah Lancaster's face appeared, sharp cheekbones and sharper words ready to fire. Then she stopped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Another face had drifted into view behind her. Pale skin, hollow eyes, a scar shaped like a butterfly across her left temple. Bruises ringed her wrists, faint but unmistakable. The kind ligatures leave behind. The woman's lips moved, barely audible through the glass. Zane 6'2". Farrah's entire body went rigid. The color drained from her face. Archie had seen shock before soldiers stepping on pressure plates, realizing too late. This was that. Farrah turned slowly, staring at the woman beside her, as if seeing a ghost. Because she was. Irene Lancaster had vanished 2 years ago. No ransom demand. No body. Just gone. And now she sat in the back of her sister's car, whispering a code that made no sense. Archie pulled the auxiliary bollard lever, locking the vehicle in place, and keyed his radio. Medical team to Southgate. Now, the interior ER room smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Helen Rivers, the company's on-site physician, moved with the calm efficiency of someone who'd stitched up too many accidents to panic. She checked Irene's pulse, pupils, and vitals, while Astrid Monroe, the company's compliance officer, stood by the door with a tablet, recording every detail. Farrah sat in the corner, hands clenched, watching her sister like she might disappear again if she blinked. Archie remained near the window, taking notes. Helen's voice stayed clinical as she documented her findings. ligature marks on both wrists, injection sites on the inner left arm, consistent with low-dose sedatives. A flinch reflex when anyone reached toward her neck. Irene's words came in fragments, half-whispered, eyes unfocused. Cold room. Red 5. Blue 3. W.A. Archie wrote it all down, his handwriting tight and deliberate. Red 5. Blue 3. He'd spent enough time mapping facility layouts during EOD work to recognize coordinate patterns. Cold rooms meant refrigerated storage. Color-coded sectors. But what were 5 and 3? Helen finished her examination and stepped back, giving Irene space. Farah moved closer, kneeling beside the bed. Her voice softer than Archie had ever heard from the CEO. "It's okay. You're safe now." Irene's gaze flickered toward her sister, then away, as if trust was too heavy to hold. Astrid tapped her tablet screen. The panic button on Zane's console was disabled with tape. Someone wanted to make sure no one could send a distress signal. She looked at Archie. "You saved their lives." Henry Grant appeared in the doorway, his expression caught between relief and suspicion. "Bennett, we need to talk." Archie followed him into the hallway. Henry kept his voice low. "You stopped the CEO's car. You triggered a full lockdown. You better be right about this." Archie pulled out the evidence bag, containing the taped panic button. "I am." Henry stared at it, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but this goes up the chain. Fast." Farah emerged from the ER, her composure starting to rebuild itself brick by brick. She looked at Archie, and for the first time, there was no irritation in her eyes. Just exhaustion. And something else. Gratitude. "You saved my sister. And maybe me." Archie nodded once. "Just doing my job, ma'am." But they both knew it was more than that. Astrid appeared beside them, her tablet screen glowing with a financial document. "I found something. Invoice records for cold storage shipments. The routing codes don't match our standard logistics, and they're all approved by someone with the initials W.A. The executive conference room on the 14th floor felt too large and too quiet. William Andrews sat at the head of the table, his smile polite. His hands folded like a priest at prayer. He was the company's chief operating officer, a man who'd climbed the ranks through operational efficiency and an almost unsettling ability to anticipate problems before they became visible. Farah stood by the window, arms crossed, watching him with the wariness of someone who'd just realized the ground beneath her wasn't solid. Archie remained near the door, observing. William's voice was smooth, almost warm. "I'm glad Irene is safe. Truly. But we need to control the narrative before this becomes a media disaster. I'll handle the press." Farah's jaw tightened. "We're not handling anything until we know what happened." William's smile didn't waver. "Of course. But Bennett here acted outside his authority. We can't have security guards making executive-level decisions." Archie didn't flinch. He'd heard this kind of undermining before, the kind that wrapped itself in professionalism while slipping a knife between your ribs. William turned his attention to Astrid. "As for those invoices, I oversee cold storage logistics. Everything was approved through proper channels. If there's an irregularity, it's clerical, not criminal." Astrid didn't back down. "Then why do the satellite route logs show no vehicle traffic matching these shipment times?" William's smile thinned. "Satellite data can be spotty. I'm sure there's an explanation." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "In fact, I'll cooperate fully. I've already invited local law enforcement to review our facilities. Transparency is key." Farah watched him leave, her expression unreadable. When the door clicked shut, she turned to Archie. "He just tried to frame you." Archie nodded. and he's setting up a controlled investigation. If the police come in on his terms, he can steer what they find. Astrid tapped her tablet. We need to move faster. If William's involved, he's already covering his tracks. Farah's gaze hardened. Then we find the tracks before he erases them. The security break room smelled like burnt coffee and old newspapers. Archie sat at the corner table, staring at his notes. Red 5. Blue 3. The words circled in his mind, like a puzzle missing its edges. The door creaked open, and Tilly Bennett stepped inside, holding a lunchbox. She was 9 years old, with her father's dark eyes, and a habit of noticing things adults missed. You didn't eat breakfast, Dad. Archie managed a tired smile. I'll eat now. Tilly set the lunchbox down and peered at his notes. What are you working on? Archie hesitated. He'd never brought work home to her, never wanted to pull her into the darkness he'd left behind in the army. But Tilly was already looking at the paper, her head tilted in that thoughtful way she had. Red 5, blue 3. Like a pattern. Archie watched as Tilly reached into her pocket and pulled out a beaded bracelet she'd been making at school. She arranged the beads on the table, 5 red, 3 blue, then looked up at him. Is it like a grid? Or a code? Something clicked in Archie's mind. A grid. Warehouse E used a color-coded shelf system for cold storage. Red zones for biocomponents. Blue zones for industrial materials. 5 and 3 could be aisle markers. Or sensor loops. The emergency lighting system in Warehouse E ran on alternating red and blue indicators to guide evacuation routes. Archie stood, pulling Tilly into a quick hug. You're brilliant. You know that? Tilly grinned. Does this mean you'll let me stay up late? Archie ruffled her hair. Nice try. An hour later, Archie stood outside Warehouse E with Farah and Astrid. Henry Grant had reluctantly approved limited access, citing a safety drill. The building loomed in the fading afternoon light, its steel walls slick with rain. Archie checked the ground as they approached the loading ramp. A faint vibration ran through the concrete machinery that shouldn't be running after hours. Near the ramp's edge, he spotted a pressure plate, barely visible under a layer of dust. Someone had installed additional security. Or a trap. Archie pointed it out. Step around it. Slowly. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of shelves and shadows. Sodium lights cast everything in sickly yellow. Archie led them deeper, following the pattern Tilly had helped him decode. Red 5. Blue 3. Aisle R5 intersected with B3 at the back corner, where a refrigerated container sat behind a makeshift partition. Archie activated his body cam. Astrid did the same. Farah hesitated, then nodded. Document everything. The container door wasn't locked. Inside, the cold hit like a fist. Shelves lined both walls, filled with unmarked crates. Ropes lay coiled in the corner, frayed and stained. A folding cot. A bucket. The smell of disinfectant trying to cover something worse. Astrid moved to the nearest shelf and scanned the label codes. These shipments are logged under Farah's digital signature, but it's not your authorization code. Farah stared at the screen, her face pale. Someone forged my approval. Archie photographed everything. The ropes. The cot. The crates. The evidence was damning. But it was also circumstantial. They needed more. A voice crackled through the warehouse speakers, smooth and familiar. William Andrews. I'm disappointed, Archie. Breaking and entering. Falsifying evidence. Farah, you should know better than to trust a man who's clearly unstable. The container door slammed shut behind them. Archie heard the lock engage with a metallic thunk. Farah spun toward the door, pounding once before stopping herself. Archie moved to the control panel beside the entry. The magnetic lock was industrial grade, designed to seal cold rooms during emergencies. But every system had a weak link. He pulled a multi-tool from his belt and knelt by the baseboard. Astrid kept recording, her voice steady despite the situation. Time-delayed upload is active. This footage will reach the board's legal counsel in 20 minutes, whether we're out or not. William's voice returned, now edged with irritation. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just admit you tried to extort the company, and this ends quietly. Archie ignored him, focusing on the lock mechanism. The magnetic seal ran on a 12-volt system. If he could interrupt the circuit at the junction box, the failsafe would disengage. He wedged a wooden shim from a packing crate into the gap, then used the multi-tool to pry the cover plate free. Farah crouched beside him. "What do you need?" Archie handed her a small flashlight. "Aim here." She held the beam steady while he worked. The wires were color-coded red for power, black for ground, green for the sensor loop. He needed to short the sensor loop without triggering the alarm. EOD work had taught him patience. Rushing got people killed. He stripped a length of wire from his pocket, always carried spare, and bridged the green and black terminals. The lock buzzed once, then clicked open. Archie stood, pulling the door wide. Henry Grant stood on the other side, his expression somewhere between relief and determination. "William just tried to lock me out of the security system. I overrode him and came straight here." He glanced past them at the container's interior, his face hardening. "I'll testify to what I saw. All of it." The ER room felt smaller now, crowded with too many emotions and not enough answers. Irene sat propped against pillows, Helen beside her, a hand resting gently on her shoulder. Farah pulled a chair close, her CEO mask finally gone, replaced by the older sister she'd been before ambition consumed her. Archie stood near the door, giving them space but staying close enough to hear. Irene's voice was quiet, fragile as old paper. "I found discrepancies in the cold storage logistics. Shipments that didn't match inventory. Routes that went nowhere. I tried to report it, but her voice broke." Farah took her hand. "But what?" Irene's eyes filled with tears. "William found out. He said if I kept digging, people would get hurt. Then one night, someone grabbed me outside my apartment. I woke up in that container. They moved me every few weeks. Different locations. Always cold. Always dark." Helen handed her a tissue. Irene wiped her eyes and continued. "There was a driver. Zane. He brought food sometimes. He didn't want to be there either. The teen. The teen. The tea. One day I heard him on the phone, crying about his sister needing surgery they couldn't afford. William had him trapped too. Zane started slipping me information. Codes. Locations. He told me if I ever got a chance, I should say Zane 6'2", that it meant I could trust whoever heard it." Farah's grip tightened on her sister's hand. "Why didn't William just—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Irene did it for her. "Kill me? I think he wanted to, but he needed leverage. As long as I was alive, he could use me to control you, to keep the logistics network hidden. I was inventory, not a person." Archie felt his jaw tighten. He'd seen cruelty before, in war zones and aftermath sites. But this was different. This was calculated, corporate. The butterfly scar on Irene's temple caught the light. She touched it absently. "I fought back once," He slammed my head against a metal shelf. It was shaped like a butterfly. I remember thinking it was almost pretty. Before everything went black. Farah stood abruptly, her composure shattering. She walked to the window, shoulders shaking. Archie could see her reflection in the glass, see the moment she chose to be strong instead of broken. When she turned back, her voice was steel. He doesn't get away with this. None of them do. The planning room was a converted conference space with whiteboards covering 3 walls and a single table in the center. Archie laid out the strategy like he was plotting an EOD approach, methodical, redundant, with multiple fail-safes. Astrid sat across from him, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. Farah paced, her mind already 10 steps ahead. Henry stood by the door, arms crossed, the weight of his decision to side with them visible in every line of his face. Archie spoke first. We have 3 objectives: evidence, exposure, and extraction. We need all 3 to happen simultaneously, or William disappears into a legal maze we'll never untangle. Astrid nodded. I'm compiling everything: body cam footage, access logs, forged signatures, invoice trails. It's encrypted in 2 packages. Package A goes to the district attorney's office. Package B goes to an investigative journalist with a reputation for corporate malfeasance, both on time-delayed release. If we don't check in every 12 hours, they auto-send. Farah stopped pacing. What about William? He knows we're coming for him. Archie pulled up a facility map on his tablet. He'll try to move Irene. Or stage something to discredit us. We need to give him a target he can't resist. Henry leaned forward. What kind of target? Archie pointed to the map. A fake transfer. We leak that Irene's being moved to a secure medical facility off-site. Zane drives. Farah rides along as family. Henry runs Overwatch with a chase vehicle. William will try to intercept. When he does, we have him on camera, in the act, with no plausible deniability. Astrid frowned. That puts Farah in danger. Farah's voice was flat. I'm already in danger. At least this way. I'm choosing it. The plan took shape over the next hour. Zane Carter had agreed to cooperate fully, his guilt and relief at finally doing the right thing evident in every word. They'd use a company ambulance, modified with hidden cameras, and a panic button directly linked to Henry's team. The route would pass through Dock 14, an old shipping area William controlled. If he was going to make a move, it would be there. Archie laid out contingencies: jamming equipment, tripwires, possible hostage scenarios. Each one had a counter. Each counter had a backup. Farah watched him work, saw the precision and care he brought to every detail, and realized this was what leadership actually looked like. Not board meetings and quarterly projections. This, protecting people, taking responsibility, making hard choices. When the plan was finalized, Archie looked at each of them. Last chance to back out. No one moved. Henry spoke for all of them. Let's end this. Dock 14 smelled like salt water and diesel. The ambulance rolled to a stop under a flickering sodium light, its engine idling in the darkness. Zane sat behind the wheel, his knuckles white on the steering column. Farah sat in the back with Irene. Not the real Irene, but a volunteer medic in a wig, positioned to look convincing from a distance. The real Irene was safe with Helen, in a secured location with 2 guards Archie trusted. Henry's chase vehicle sat 200 yards back, lights off, watching. Archie crouched behind a shipping container, body cam recording, every sense tuned to the environment. He'd already identified 3 tripwires, thin filament, stretched across likely approach vectors, connected to propane canisters rigged as improvised flashbangs. Not lethal, but enough to cause chaos. He'd marked each one with reflective tape visible only from specific angles. A black SUV rolled into the dock area, headlights cutting through the mist. William Andrews stepped out, flanked by two men Archie didn't recognize. Private security, probably. The kind that didn't ask questions. William walked toward the ambulance, hands in his pockets, that same polite smile on his face. He tapped the rear door. "Farah, let's talk." Farah opened the door, stepping down. "There's nothing to talk about, William." His smile didn't falter. "You've made some unfortunate mistakes. Listening to a paranoid security guard. Fabricating evidence. It's sad, really. I'm trying to protect the company from scandal, and you're tearing it apart." Farah's voice was ice. "The only scandal is you." William sighed, pulling a phone from his pocket. "I was hoping we could resolve this quietly. But if you insist..." He activated a signal jammer. The cell service bars on Farah's phone dropped to 0. Archie moved. He'd anticipated the jamming Henry's team had a backup radio frequency William didn't know about. Archie clicked his transmitter 3 times. Gate. Blue. 5. The safe signal. Then he stepped into the light. Hands visible. Voice calm. "You might want to check your footage, William." William turned. Irritation flashing across his face. "Bennett, still playing hero?" Archie nodded toward the shipping container behind him, where Astrid emerged holding a tablet. Live footage streamed across the screen this moment, uploading in real time to a secure server the board's legal team was currently watching. William's expression finally cracked. The smile vanished. His hand moved toward his jacket. Archie was faster. Not with violence, but with precision. He kicked the nearest tripwire anchor, sending it slack. The propane canister tipped harmlessly to the side. "Don't." Henry's chase vehicle roared forward, floodlights igniting the entire dock. 4 security officers poured out, weapons drawn but pointed low. Henry's voice boomed through a megaphone. "William Andrews, you're under arrest for kidnapping, human trafficking, and corporate fraud. Get on the ground, now." William stood frozen, his face pale under the floodlights. The 2 men beside him raised their hands immediately, smart enough to know when a fight was already lost. William looked at Archie, then at Farah, and finally at the body cam footage still streaming live. He sank to his knees, hands behind his head, the last piece of his composure shattering like glass. Farah walked past him without a word. She climbed into the ambulance and nodded to Zane. "Let's go home." The south gate looked different in the morning light. Farah stood where Archie had stood 3 days ago, one hand raised, the other on the barrier control. A company van approached. William Andrews visible through the reinforced glass partition, handcuffs glinting on his wrists. 2 federal marshals sat in the front. The van slowed. Farah didn't move. The driver rolled down his window. "Ma'am, we need to exit." Farah's voice carried the same quiet authority Archie had used. "Protocol 9B. Unusual duress indicators. I'm conducting a secondary inspection." The driver blinked, confused. Then he saw the board members standing behind her, Astrid with her tablet, Henry with his radio, 3 independent directors who'd been briefed overnight. He nodded and put the van in park. Farah walked to the rear window. William stared at her through the glass, his expression empty. She leaned close. "You taught me something, William. Power isn't about control. It's about responsibility. I forgot that. I won't forget again." She stepped back and signaled the driver. The van rolled forward, through the gate, and out of their lives. The board meeting that followed was swift and brutal. Astrid presented the evidence: body cam footage, access logs, financial trails, Zane's testimony, Irene's statement. The vote was unanimous. William's entire logistics network was dismantled. 3 shell companies were frozen. 2 more executives who'd looked the other way were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The company issued a public statement, transparent and unsparing. Farah stood at the podium, her voice steady, and told the truth. All of it. Helen monitored Irene's recovery with the same quiet competence she brought to everything. Trauma therapy, support groups, gradual reintegration into normal life. Farah set up a whistleblower fund, anonymous reporting, guaranteed investigation, legal protection for anyone who came forward. Zane Carter kept his job, but he also started meeting with a counselor twice a week. His sister got her surgery. He sent Archie a thank you card with a single line. "You gave me a second chance." Archie kept it in his locker, next to a photo of Tilly. The company promoted him to Deputy Director of Protective Operations. He declined the corner office, kept his post at the South Gate, and spent his evenings designing training scenarios based on Protocol 9B. Henry helped him build the curriculum. They made it mandatory for every security officer, every supervisor, every executive who thought they were too important to pay attention. One afternoon, Tilly appeared at the South Gate with a small gift bag. Irene stood beside her, looking stronger now, color back in her face. Tilly pulled out a beaded bracelet, red, blue, and handed it to Irene. "For remembering, you're safe." Irene knelt down, eye level with the girl who'd helped decode the message that saved her life. "Thank you." She tied the bracelet around her wrist, and for the first time in 2 years, she smiled without fear behind it. Farah watched from a few feet away, then approached Archie. They stood together in the same spot where everything had started. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, warming the concrete and steel. Farah spoke quietly. "You didn't just save a CEO. You saved a sister." Archie's response was just as quiet. "You didn't just trust me. You chose to do the right thing." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of it, the kind that's built on respect and shared scars, and the knowledge that some people are worth the risk. The South Gate stood open now, the barrier raised, sunlight streaming through the gap where it used to block the road. Archie stood at his post, watching the morning traffic flow, and thought about how a single moment of paying attention had changed everything. Protocol 9B wasn't just a rule anymore. It was a promise to see what others missed, to act when others hesitated, to protect not just the company, but the people inside it. Farah had learned that lesson too. She'd restructured the board, implemented transparency protocols, and made it clear that no one, no matter how powerful, was above accountability. The company became stronger because of it, not despite the scandal, but because they'd faced it head-on and chosen integrity over image. Tilly visited the gate every day after school, bringing her father lunch and sometimes sitting with him while he worked. She'd started a project for class about everyday heroes, and Archie had caught her interviewing Henry and Astrid. When he asked what she was writing, she just grinned and said, "You'll see." Irene moved into an apartment near Farah's, close enough to feel safe, far enough to rebuild her independence. She started volunteering with a survivors advocacy group, turning her trauma into purpose. On good days, she could talk about what happened without flinching. On bad days, Helen was a phone call away. Progress wasn't linear, but it was real. Zane took a weekend trip to see his sister, who was recovering well from her surgery. He sent Archie a photo, 2 people smiling. Genuinely happy. The kind of smile that comes from knowing you survived something that could have destroyed you. Archie pinned it to the break room bulletin board, next to a note from Farah thanking the security team for their vigilance, and a newspaper clipping about the new whistleblower protections. The company had become a case study in how to handle internal corruption. Other corporations reached out, asking for guidance. Farah delegated most of it to Astrid, who discovered a talent for policy reform and a passion for holding power accountable. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring, and the South Gate saw its share of rain and sunshine, deliveries and departures. Ordinary days marked by the quiet competence of people doing their jobs well. Archie stood at his post one morning when Farah's car approached, not a sedan this time, but her own vehicle. No tinted windows, no armor plating. Just a woman driving to work. She rolled down the window as she passed. "Morning, Archie." He nodded. "Morning, ma'am." She smiled. Something soft and genuine. "It's Farah." He smiled back. "Morning, Farah." The barrier rose, and she drove through. And Archie watched her go with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd done their job, and done it right. The world kept turning. The gate kept opening and closing, and somewhere in the space between what was and what could be, two people who'd saved each other's lives started building something neither had expected. Not a fairy tale, just a real story, with real consequences, and the quiet courage to believe that paying attention, really paying attention, could change everything.